So it may appear to you that in all of the new rules and regulations, the seller has been fairly left out of the discussion. And for a large part, that's true. The TRID really applies to the buyer, and it seems like there has not been any real attention given to the seller. That said, it may well be a blessing in disguise. The reason for that is the closing disclosure for the seller is much simpler, much easier to read than that for the buyer. So let's dive into this, hammer it out, and you should be able to see these and be able to understand them completely. So going forward here, we have the date that they're issued again. Now this is different than the buyer. They're not set by the same rules as the buyer. The seller does not need to get this until the actual day of transaction, believe it or not. Now that said, that's not what we want to do. We want to make sure we get this to you still with at least within 24 hours of closing. But just be aware the seller has no statutory requirement to get this until the day of the closing. We have the closing date, the disbursement date as well. Be thankful Pennsylvania is a wet state, wet fund state. That means the same day we close, we disperse. Settlement agent there, file number, property address. We have the sales price again of $169,950. Going over here, we would have the buyer's personal name, address, seller's name and address. Zooming out slightly, we have the contact information for the real estate broker for the buyer. We have the contact information for the real estate broker for the seller. And again, you have my company's information for this transaction. Again, I am doing this transaction. That's why you'll see my name and license ID number there. Depending on who does your transaction from my office, that's what you'll see, various names and ID numbers in that area. Going up here, this is very simple. This is the summary of the transaction. The total gross the seller is going to be getting. The due to the seller at closing is $170,754.13. Of that, $169,950 is due to the sales price of the property, and the remaining balances are the proration for the county and school taxes up through the end of the year. This is Butler. They collect for the county and town tax together. So the total amount owed, the gross amount owed, I should say, to the seller is the sum of those three figures, which is $170,754.13. And again, like the buyer side of the closing disclosure, whereas before they would add it up and have the sum below there, they instead have flipped it out where they put the sum first and then they break it down beneath there. These are the reductions to the seller. So total due from the seller at closing is $20,549.50. Of that, closing costs make up $15,451, and the remaining difference is the seller's assist of $5,098.50. So those two items together equal the $20,549.50. So you have the gross less the charges, and you have what the seller will be netting for this transaction, which will be $150,204.63. So that there is extraordinarily similar to the settlement statement that we see today. Going over to page 2. At the top here, closing cost details, we again have a list of the fees that the buyer would have paid for. Now, on certain types of loans, such as a VA loan, you may see that the seller was required to pay for some of these items. And if that was the case, you would see them in this section right here. But that is not the case on this form. Going down further here, though, other costs, we have a transfer tax. Transfer taxes are being split 50-50, 1% to each side. So the seller is responsible for paying $1,699.50 of the transfer taxes. They are not paying any of the prepaids. They are not chipping in for any of the escrow amounts. Going down further here, this is where you're going to see your commission is down below here, section 1 and 2. You have the amounts of the commission. Then you also have my company's fees. You have the home warranty there of $495, and then my other fees down below here. Now you might wonder, why is it jumping around here? And this is something I did not point out. Each group of these fees, they are automatically put in alphabetical order. Why? Because some bureaucrat in Washington decided that was a good idea. I think it's a little bit silly. I liked it much better how it was before, where you were grouped into different sets depending on who was being paid, but that is no longer the case. Washington has spoken, and they like alphabetical order better. So the total then is $15,451, which if we go back to page 1, you find that right there. It's a breakdown of your costs. There you have it. And again, the seller doesn't even need to get this till the day of the closing, but I promise you, we will get that to him well before the day of the closing. Most of the time, seller side is actually easier for us to hammer out than the buyer's side. So they may even be getting this earlier, though we probably will wait we'll probably get about the same time as the buyer. The only exception to that would be areas such as Cranberry, where we don't get the final water and sewage. They just absolutely will not give you the final water and sewage until 24 hours before closing. In which case, we get it to you the day before closing, much like you get now. I hope this was informative, and it's really fun and exciting because you are going to be seeing these now in the next week. They're coming due, and good luck, and everything's going to go smoothly. The scare time is over. It's just time to get these all closed. Thank you, and have a wonderful night.